Hi friends! So in the video this week, we're going to be trying a new craft that I've never done before. And with pretty much every craft that I try, I either have a kit with all of the supplies and step-by-step instructions telling me exactly what to do, or I have a single picture with absolutely no instructions and no idea what I'm doing, and just making it up as I go along. This week is the latter. Okay, let me just show you what I want to do. So on Pinterest, I keep seeing these cool little, I don't even know what you'd call them, like felt applique embroidery hoop things, where it's like felt that they made into a picture. And I've been wanting to try this so bad. So let's see if we can figure out what we need. I think first we're going to need an embroidery hoop. I really didn't want to have to go buy anything for this if I didn't have to, and luckily I'm a craft hoarder, so I actually had 4 different embroidery hoops. Next, it looks like they're all sewn on to like a cute cotton fabric. Most of them appear to be like stripes or polka dots, and I just so happen to have a whole tote of fabric. So we've got some pretty heart fabric, we've got some checkered, some polka dots, something ugly, a bunch of little scraps, some floral, more polka dots, all kinds of stuff. So we have that. It also looks like we need felt, and I have plenty, in just about every color that you could need. Then we need embroidery thread. I have embroidery thread. So I think we have everything we need. But first, let's do a test drive. So I'm going to take the smallest embroidery hoop, get out my sketchbook, find a blank page that doesn't have anything on it, and trace around this circle. Maybe I'll do 2 ideas, and then I'll pick whichever one is cuter. First, I thought that maybe I didn't want to draw, and I pulled out this really simple coloring book. I'm just kind of flipping through, looking for some ideas. Oh, I really want to do a rainbow rose. Or this little butterfly. But that's not simple. I just need to stay simple and see if this idea will work. Then I decided to just freehand a strawberry. I may have been inspired by the only page that's actually colored in that book. Did I forget how to draw a strawberry? After some fiddling around, we got to something that looks like a strawberry. Now let's pick out the colors of the felt. Do I want a red strawberry or a pink strawberry? I have a lot of felt, but I want to use up all the scraps first. I have yellow for the seeds, then I have green, and this green, which is kind of thin. Not sure if that's going to affect anything. So I think green, green, red, and this yellow. I also have a heat erasable pen to draw on the felt. Now, how do I trace this out? If I put it up to the light, can I see it? Nope, sure can't. Maybe I'll just draw a strawberry and we'll trim it down if necessary. Now, since you all said that I could use fabric scissors on felt without ruining the scissors, that's what I'm gonna do. Oh, I don't like that. I'm gonna fold it in half and trim it so it matches. That's better. Then we need some green leaves. Let's try like this big. Okay, then I'm just gonna trace that and make 4 more leaves. Alright, this, and this. How's that look? Weird. Maybe more down? How's that? No. Maybe the strawberry needs to curve in more. I seem super professional right now. Okay, now let's see if we do like this guy here and then this guy here. But like up here, does that look more strawberry-like? No. Maybe they need to be less fat. Does that look okay? Looking back at the pictures, I think it's going to make more sense to embroider the seeds because they're going to be kind of small and I think that the felt will just pull apart. I feel like the strawberry needs just a little bit more of a point on the tip though. There. Yes. Better, better, better. Okay. All right. Now I need to pick out a fabric to go behind all of this. We have this, 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 or we have this. So we have blue, or we have this pink, or we have flowers, or we have the hearts. I think I like this one. Next, we need to pick out some thread to go with everything. In the pictures, it looks like the thread matches exactly. So let's pick out some thread. How in all of these colors do I not have a perfect match? I think this is the closest. For this neon-y green, I don't have anything even close. So we're just gonna have to take a stab at it. That's not a match, but that's what it's gonna be. Now I have my backing, I have all of my felt pieces, I have my embroidery thread, I have my needles, and I have my hoop. But I did see on the pictures that a lot of the hoops look painted, so I'm just gonna throw a coat of yellow acrylic paint onto this. I should have done white first because this yellow is barely showing up, but what are you gonna do? Extra coats of yellow. And while that's drying, I'm gonna sew the strawberry using this bigger hoop. Let's trim off a little square of fabric, put it in the hoop, and for the thread, I'm gonna separate the thread in half, so it's gonna be 3 strands instead of 6. I don't obviously know what they did in the pictures, but I think that that's what I did when I sewed those felt plushies before. I don't remember for sure, and I can't be bothered to look it up. Let me pin this strawberry on here, thread the needle, and tie a knot at the end. Then, I have a little tool that I want to try to use. In the pictures, it looks like they use a straight stitch, and I am not great at getting my stitches a consistent length. So I'm going to try one of these little stitch measurer thingies. You just hold it on your thumb, and then it helps you measure your little stitches. So we're going to see if that works. I think I want to do the 3mm. Okay, so this is not the most comfortable thing to wear. Like, it might actually feel better with longer fingers, but it does seem to help make the stitches even. I do think I want the stitches to be a little bigger on the next one because I forgot that felt kind of stretches and pulls. So even though the stitch length is longer, it sort of pulls tighter and looks really tiny. But I'm gonna stick with this one for the rest of the strawberry because I want it to look uniform. Now, halfway through the strawberry, I realized that I should have embroidered the seeds first. Whoops. So we're going to be doing those next, and they're just going to go all the way through the felt and the fabric. To make the seeds, I'm going to use this light yellow. I drew out a few little seeds first to get the placement right, and then I'm just sort of going around and around, trying to make the seeds a sort of teardroppy shape. I'm not an embroiderer. Does that look like a seed? There. Okay. There. That's better. For the rest of them, I'm just kind of going back and forth, measuring and eyeballing them. I'm just sick of holding that thing on my thumb, but the seeds keep coming out smaller than I wanted. I am learning that my stitches always end up smaller than I expect them to, so that's why we're testing these things out. Next, I gotta figure out these freaking leaves. No matter how much I mess with these, they just looked wrong. I rearranged them every which way, trimmed them thinner and shorter, turned one into a little stem and sort of layered them. And that's the configuration that looks the least weird, so that's what we're gonna go with. I pinned on the lighter green leaves and did a big fat stitch down the center. I think it's called a back stitch, but I'm not 100%. I went back and forth about whether I should do a straight stitch around the edge, a whip stitch, or this center stitch. Time's gonna tell if I made the right choice. For the stem, I went with a straight stitch around the edge, just kind of eyeballing the stitch size. Then I did the same for the darker green leaves, sort of overlapping them over the lighter green. I actually meant to cover the lighter green more than I did, but it was getting late in the evening, so I was getting a little wild. Or possibly just tired, because I also sewed the edge of the fabric to the back of itself without even noticing. It doesn't really matter that much since no one's going to see it, except all of you, but I still felt really dumb. I'm just gonna cut it because I am not undoing all of that. I finished stitching the leaf and trimmed off as much of that mess as I could. And now the hoop that I painted is all dry, and I can take the fabric out of this one and transfer it to the correct one, trying to center the fabric as best as I could. Then, to finish the back, I traced out a circle of felt and whip stitched that to the fabric on the back. I did this before with a punch needle project that I did, and it's pretty quick and easy and hides all of the mess. And this one is done. It looks cute. It's simple, but I think I learned some things and proved to myself that how I think it's put together does actually work, and now I'm ready to move on to a bigger one. So next, we can do this big guy. This is the biggest hoop that I have. I got out a bigger sketchbook and traced around the hoop again, and for this one, I know exactly what I want to draw. I wanted to try putting actual words on this one, like the pictures that I saw, and recently I sent something to a subscriber with a llama on it that said llama drama. And that got me thinking. So this is going to be a llama, and it's going to say no problema. I'm trying to think about how difficult it's going to be to do in felt, so I'm trying to make it very simplistic and make the fur loops pretty big. I wanted the face to be super sassy. The whole thing was still looking a little plain, so I took some inspiration from this one and added some stars around the outside. Now let's pick out some colors for this. I apparently chose this off-white fabric with little red hearts. I don't remember choosing it, but I was alone in my craft room and there it is, so it must have been me. Now for the llama, do I want to do pink, blue, purple, or brown? I wish I had more of a pastel-y version of the blue, pink, or purple. So instead, let's do this tan brown with a cream face. Then I have 9 stars, so let's do these colors. That's just 8 colors. I just said I needed 9. Don't worry, I'll figure that out later. Before I get going, I need to paint this hoop. And I don't want to do 400 coats, so I'm going to put a little gesso on here first. Then, since I don't have a spare hoop this size to work with, I'm going to use a paint marker to paint this and see if that dries a little faster. That red is not what I thought it was going to be. Oh well, we're going to go with it. While that dries, I'll cut out all of my felt. For the stars, I'm going to use a stencil because my star drawing skills are not great. At first, I used that heat erase pen, but the tip isn't the finest, and it didn't really get into the very points of the star, so when I cut it out, it just looked not great. I tried making a bigger star, which looked better, but then it was too big. So I tried using a fine liner, which did help, but the ink isn't going to erase. I also figured out that if I cut the star always in the same direction, counterclockwise for me, instead of cutting from the point to the center on each arm, it came out looking better. Why? I have no idea. Do you even understand what I'm saying? Debatable, but if that tiny little detail can help one person, it's worth it. And I finally realized that I do in fact need 9 stars. I'm really hoping that the ink from the pen won't show on the sides when I stitch these down. For the actual llama, I made a photocopy of my sketch so that I can cut it out and make some stencils to trace. I made a head stencil, an ear stencil with his better looking ear, and a body stencil. On the head, I cut out the face and traced around that on the cream fabric. I'm going to cut around it larger so that I can stitch it, but I want to know where the edges are so that I can center his face. I traced each piece and trimmed them all out. I did have to make the loops even more exaggerated on the felt, and I even had to trim his face hole a bit more so that his face is going to show. I redrew the face onto the cream fabric and cut out 2 little pink inner ear pieces. And now the paint on the fabric hoop is for sure dry, so let's center the fabric and squeeze it in here. This fabric was obviously being used for some sort of clothing pattern that was never finished, so I just centered it between the seams and trimmed around the edge. For the words on the top, I'm going to use a stencil for this too to make sure it looks fairly even. I figured out that the middle character was the B, centered it at the top, and then worked my way out from each side. It's probably not perfect, but it looks pretty dang good to me. To stitch the lettering on, I'm going to use black thread with 3 strands again. And I'm going to do back stitching with my 2mm tool thingy. The tool definitely helped for this, but since the letters apparently weren't an even number of millimeter measurement, I kind of had to adjust and eyeball it a little. It worked, and it didn't come out bad per se, but the A's aren't the same font anymore. I somehow used 2 strands here and 4 strands here, and I went all the way through without stopping and restarting the thread, so the back is a mess. But who cares? The back is no one's business. The fun part is erasing the ink, so that you can't see where the thread was supposed to be. Now, let's remember to do the embroidery before we stitch on the pieces and add this llama's face. I don't really know any more than like 3 embroidery stitches, so I'm just going to go with a back stitch again. And I ended up going over his eyes multiple times to make them as long as I actually want them. Yes, I could take the stitching out and redo it, but no, I didn't want to. My method of just thickening his eyeliner worked just fine. He kind of looks like a lion, and when I take his fur and put it on, he looks even more like a lion. But I'm going to pin him like this, and then I'm going to stitch around the inside fur face area. That's not right. I really wish that I could have used one of those tool things because this doesn't look super even, but I couldn't figure out how to use it on a curve. I bet in the future I could like sketch out a little line to follow, but I hadn't thought of that yet. For the inner ears, I decided to try something different. I noticed that some of the smaller details in the pictures were whip stitched right around the like very edge, so I'm going to do that on these. And I love how this looks. The thread barely shows and it just looks so tidy. With all the little details done, I can start adding pieces to the fabric. Starting with the body piece, and I'm going to pin it down right on the edge. Now, for some reason, being that I wasn't thinking at all, I used the 4mm tool to stitch across the bottom. And that looks great, except that next I need to go around the loops of fur, and the 4mm is going to be way too big. I could have just taken it out and started over. I mean, I should have just taken it out and started over, but I didn't. Instead, I just kept going with smaller eyeballed stitches around the rest of the body piece. In the future, I will make better choices, but by Thursday evenings, I'm kind of low on the caring meter. I wanted the ears to be behind the head, so I pinned the head on so I could get the ear placement right, and then I pinned the ears on where I wanted them. I whip stitched these on too. I don't know how these embroidery artists actually choose what stitch they want to use, but I kind of want to whip stitch everything. See how cute that looks? I finished the outside of the head with a regular straight stitch to attach it, and then the last thing that I'm going to do is add the stars, just whip stitching on each one. And with those all done, I can finish the back. And this one is done too. It's so cute. I can definitely see things that I would like to do better next time, and I already have ideas about details I could add, like embroidering some fur lines to make him look extra fuzzy, but overall, I am super proud of this one. So that's both of these projects. I had the best time doing these. They both came out so cute. I have so many more ideas that I want to try. I really encourage you to try this because it was really enjoyable to do. What do you think? Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.